All right.
Okay, tonight we're beginning a new 5-part series. It's based on a DVD, which itself is based on a book by Shauna Niequist. The book is called Present Over Perfect, and the title is sort of pointing towards an overall theme of giving up unrealistic expectations about the perfect life and learning to live in the present and accept the present. So it takes up a lot of themes that sort of circle around. Yeah. The session tonight is called Pain Points, which is a bit of a misnomer. There's really one line at the end of the DVD that sort of brings up the issue of pain, where she says that most of us won't change something about our life until the pain becomes too unbearable. And that is a poignant line, but she holds it till the very end. So there's a lot of other in this opening session. I kind of want to set the scene for this opening session. So for me, this was one of the lines that stood out from the DVD. She's talking about the hectic pace of her life, all very good things, generally good things that she's involved in, but they're really taking a toll on her. And so at one point she says, I wanted a voice from heaven to say, you're allowed to stop. You're allowed to stop. Because in her own Christian background, whether it was explicit or implicit, there was sort of that sense that to be a Christian is to be constantly producing and serving and giving and acting, and stopping or pausing or resting is really not allowed. It's really not Christian. So she was wearing herself out. So just a question here at the beginning, as you think about your life and including your life as a Christian, your spiritual life, which is a little, all of life is spiritual. So it's hard to say we have a spiritual life and the rest of our life. But how would you rate yourself on a scale from ragged to rested? What would you say that your life generally leaves you feeling? Ragged, hurried, stressed, too much to do, not enough time to do it. Rested, feeling good margins, good boundaries, lots of energy. What would you say generally your life leaves you feeling? Where on that continuum?
Now that you're here, I feel rested.
That's funny because I feel ragged.
Yes, I was wondering.
Maybe that's just road rage.
General these days, it's been like I'm ready for the next day. So pretty much, by the end of the day, I'm tired, but up for the next day. Happy to whatever's going on tomorrow.
Good. So not dreading the next day, ready for the next day. Yeah. Anyone else? Ragged to rested. Where do you fall?
Well, somewhere in the middle, but probably a little more over towards, I wouldn't use the word rested, but at peace and calm than my life used to be.
Okay.
Is that retirement, Jane?
Well, partial retirement, yes. I don't have the responsibility for how things go the way I used to. Doesn't sit on my shoulders anymore. I just do my little job.
Anyone else? Penny?
Well, I'll say that I'm more towards the ragged.
Okay. Thank you for your transparency.
Yeah.
I would say my head is spinning. It's on the other side of if the needle were pointed down, it would be on head spinning.
Okay.
Ooh,
That's a song. I think I fluctuate very drastically
Hmm.
from one day to the next.
Okay, yeah. So it may depend on the season that we're in and some of the circumstances that we're involved in. Let me share a couple of slides. Ruth Haley Barton has a book called Invitation to Retreat. And some of this is a good companion to what we're looking at. So she distinguishes between two different kinds of tired. There's good tired and there's dangerous tired. Good tired is the poured out feeling we experience after a job well done or an unusually intense season of activity. So it's normal, expected, part of a good, healthy life. And the remedy is, getting a good night's sleep, having an actual Sabbath or a weekend off or taking a vacation. And that generally refills us after a good tired. Dangerous tired accumulates over a longer period of time in which we are, and then here are the ingredients. Either we're consistently living beyond human limits or functioning outside of our giftedness or not paying attention to the sources of our exhaustion. So any one of those three over time leads to a kind of dangerous tired where the remedy is extended retreat, extended time off. One good night's sleep isn't going to really fix it. Or some kind of radical life change where proper boundaries are reestablished in life. If you were to name the tiredness that you generally feel in your life, would it be good tired or dangerous tired?
I walked in tonight and they asked me, I think it was Sandy or Julie asked how I was. I said, I'm happily tired, living with my grandkids for 4 days. So,
Mhm.
so I'm
That's a good
physically tired, but I'm happy.
Yeah. Good tired or dangerous tired?
It depends on the day.
Hmm.
I felt like Saturday we got up early and did a lot of work on the house and got a lot of stuff done, but then we enjoyed some time of
Mhm.
relaxation, and that was a good balance. But most
Mhm.
days I feel kind of frazzled.
Mhm. Yeah, a little outside of good tired. What would you say lead to, just in your own life, what leads to any sense of being rushed or stress or hurry, especially even as you think about your spiritual life? What contributes to being tired to you?
I think sometimes just listening to too many negative voices.
Okay, too many negative voices. Yeah, that's good, Kelly.
Probably expectations that we should get to everything on our to-do list today
Mhm. Yeah.
and do them well.
And where do those expectations come from?
They're my own. I set my own expectations.
Okay. Some of this is self-imposed.
At this stage of my life, yes.
Yeah. Again, just by way of setting the stage here, and then we'll move into the video. Ruth Haley Barton in this book, Invitation to Retreat. These are some of the sources of our exhaustion. So we're functioning out of an inordinate sense of ought and should. We have unreasonable expectations that we should be a never-ending fountain of love, goodwill, service. Or we find it difficult or even humiliating to receive help from others. Allowing someone to serve us in this way puts them in touch with a very human, maybe even less than perfect aspect of ourselves. We might be living more as a performer than as the person God created. When our sense of self-worth is derived from our performance, it's difficult to stop performing. We may have few or no boundaries on our service and availability to others. The more differentiated we are, the more we're able to operate from a thoughtful inner guidance system rather than being held hostage by the emotions and expectations of others. And finally, we are carrying the great burden of unhealed wounds, sadness, unresolved tension, toxicity in one or more of our relationships. And we've been told that a good Christian should be able to handle it. But the truth is that our effort to manage all of that is unresolved within us, is draining life energy. Any of those resonate with anybody here tonight?
Is there the category all the above?
Yes, there is now.
Yeah, I agree with John and the comment that was made earlier. I think you were talking, Chris, about how just in the Christian walk, we're kind of taught that we can, through God we can do all things. And so so if we are getting tired and discouraged, then is our faith waning? We make or at least I do, I make a direct correlation between the two.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Philippians 4:13 may be the most inappropriately used text in Christendom. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Yeah.
The thing that I think has caught me different times in my life, maybe it's some combination of those, but it's more of a feeling of not like oddness, but just there's a sense of this is my gift, this is my talent, this is what God's given me, and this is what's in front of me. So I'm somewhat compelled to do it. It's not like I don't want to, I do want to, it's coming from the space, within me that I think is God given. But sometimes it just wear you out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the oddness doesn't really somehow doesn't speak to that the way I feel it.
Because it's something you want to do. It's not a sense of obligation, but more in alignment with your identity. This is who I am. This is what I've been gifted. And so it's that discernment in terms of how we use our gifts.
But I hear that, and Debbie, I guess part of my problem is there's a lot of things I want to do, and just not nearly enough time, and sometimes that gets me in trouble.
Yeah. Not have enough hours in the day to make so sometimes I find making choices between the good and the best, leaves me like they're all good choices, but I gotta make a decision about how to use my time to do the best.
Yeah. Okay, so in the video, Shauna Niequist is going to talk around sort of this general idea. She's going to share in her own testimony that there were two things that were leading her to be just unrested in her Christian life: pride and gluttony. Pride, believing I can do anything, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, and gluttony, believing more of whatever good thing she might think of, more of that will make me happy, will make me fulfilled. And so she just kept saying yes, 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 yes. And then towards the end there, she comes to this line: no one changes their life, it should be life, until the pain becomes great enough. The pain of being overworked and overstressed in a Christian life. Okay, so we're going to watch this video, and then on the other side, we'll talk about it. It's been a while since we did those alpha videos. There's a bit of technology here that's a little rusty to me. So I'm going to start the video. Those of you online, would you give me a thumbs up if you hear it? Okay. I'm certain you guys will hear it. But... So give me a sec. I've stopped sharing.
if you've ever had one of those like before and after, line in the sand, everything changes kind of moments. But I had a moment about 3.5 years ago. I was 36. I had 2 sons. One was a baby who was not, sleeping wasn't really his good thing that he did. He was very cute, but he was not a sleeper. I was trying to get a book finished. It had recipes as a part of it, and I was just testing recipes all the time. And I loved all these pieces of my life, but increasingly I felt further and further from myself, from God, from my family, from kind of the way I thought life was supposed to feel. Things felt fast and they felt heavy, and I felt pressure in every moment. And I could feel this building in little ways. And then there was a moment, it was October, and I was at an event in Dallas, and I felt so wrung out and so exhausted. And in between speaking sessions, where I would normally talk with people or go outside, I went back to my hotel room and I laid on the bed, fully clothed, shoes on, and I looked up at the ceiling and I said to myself, this way of living is over. My spiritual life had become more pressure than respite. My relationships were distant because I never had enough to give. My physical health was failing. I slept poorly, I ate poorly, and it showed in every area of my life. And things felt heavier and more fractured than I wanted them to feel. And I just sat there in the silence. I had no idea how to disappoint people that expected things from me. But I knew in a deep way in that moment that no matter what it cost me, I was going to find a new way of living. A way of living that was not marked by pushing and proving and earning and competing. That wasn't marked by exhaustion and isolation. I wanted to live a life drenched in love and soaked in grace and full of meaning and connection. And my life didn't look anything like that at the time. And so in that moment, even though I didn't have any idea what the next steps would be, I said, this is it. This is my before and after. I'm not gonna live this way even one more day. Our boys are crazy about the Peanuts movie with Snoopy and Charlie Brown. And it's so fun because obviously I grew up with like the comic strip and the Charlie Brown Christmas movie. And now they're so excited about this new Peanuts movie. So we all went to see it, a couple months ago as a family. It was a really fun thing to do together. And so, I'm at this place in my life where I'm trying to figure out what's happening. How did I get to this place where things feel so fragmented and so off, so different from the way I wanted them to feel, from the life I thought I was building? So I'm thinking about the Peanuts movie, and I'm thinking about, there's one little guy named Pigpen. And even when he's standing perfectly still, do you remember this? There's like this swirl of dirt around him. That's just like how he is. Like he lives surrounded by like this swirl of dirt and dust, okay? And so I realized like that was me. And I'm thinking like, how odd that I've got all this chaos circling around me. Everywhere I go, it's still there. And for a while, I thought it was just like a funny coincidence. Like, this has just been like a little stretch of time that's pretty busy. I guess this just happened to me. Or, man, things are always so full and complicated and chaotic in my life. Isn't that strange? And I feel like it's sort of like when you meet a girl and she's like, I don't know why, but drama just always finds me. Like it's totally not me. It's just like I happen to find myself in the center of all this drama. And then you watch her like steal someone's boyfriend and trash another friend. And you're like, really? Like I feel like maybe the common denominator for this drama, like it might be you. And so for a while I was just, like, oh, I don't know how this is happening. I'm always too busy, always. So weird. And my life always feels overly complicated and chaotic and kind of jammed full of too many things. Like there's not even space to breathe or rest. How odd. right? That this keeps happening to me. And at a certain point, I had to say to myself, I think you're making this. I think you're the one, like the common denominator in all these dynamics, right? It's me. I was keeping myself too busy, and I was filling my life too full. I was playing too many roles. I was pushing too hard. And the only person responsible was me. And in some ways, that's kind of a hard thing when you're like, oh no, I did this, right? You know, sometimes you meet a person who they tell you it's just such a funny coincidence that all of their friends are mean people, right? There's broken relationships everywhere through their life with their family of origin, with their kids' teachers, with their neighbors. It's just like a lot of mean people, right? You start to think her little pig pen thing might be her inability to relate to people, right? So she thinks she's doing it to someone else. Or, you know, we all know people who every church they go to is a bad church. Maybe, and there are some bad churches, but maybe that's their kind of pig pen. That's the swirling dirt that they bring into every situation. So it was really meaningful for me to kind of sit down and say, what is it that I've been dragging through my life into every situation through all these years? And for me, it really comes down to essentially two things. Too busy, too much. And you can sort of look at that like pride and gluttony. And, you know, some people like, you know, kind of like really like religious words for that. And some people, you know, don't like. So some people call that like your besetting sin or your shadow side. But they're essentially the things that are in you, that have probably always been in you, that you're going to battle in order to be the best version of yourself, right? So there are a lot of things that aren't particularly difficult for me, but pride and gluttony are really tough. So the pride part is I think I can do everything. And I think that doing everything will somehow make me happy. So I'll be your friend who brings a meal and I'll say yes to that deadline. And I will take your kids and then I'll do that quick work trip. And the idea that I'm so capable, I got really invested in the idea of being a super capable person. And so I wore myself out in order to live up to that expectation I had for myself, to that identity I was putting on myself. And then gluttony, I just want to eat more, see more, do more, read more, go more places. It's like I'm going to gobble up all of life in huge bites. But too much of anything makes you sick. It makes you tired. And so I ended up really sick and really tired. And I ended up sick and tired physically. But more than that, I ended up sick and tired on the insides. So gluttony, essentially, there's a lot of different ways that people define it, and sort of an old-fashioned word, but essentially it's that hunger, that ravenous sense that I want to eat more, buy more, experience more, see more, read more, go more places. It's sort of this insatiable desire for everything. And unchecked and untended and left to its own devices, you'll just run yourself completely ragged, trying to consume every single thing this world has to offer. And I found myself just stuffed with experiences, with food, with things, with stamps on my passport, all good things, but too much of everything. And the volume and chaos of my life, because of the choices that I had made, became so high that I couldn't feel or connect with my own soul. We like to believe, I think, that no matter what, our souls will just retain this sort of beautiful, connected, life-filled way of being, right? That they'll be fine, right? It doesn't really matter. They'll just keep chugging along. But a soul is like anything else. A soul is like any other part of us. It's fragile. It needs to be tended. It needs to be loved. Sometimes it needs to be healed. I think we like to believe that no matter what, our soul, or caring for our soul, that can wait. When things slow down, when the kids are bigger, when money is not so tight, when things feel a little more spacious, then we'll tend to sort of the optional things like souls. We think they'll just probably be fine until we have the time or the space or the inclination to really pay attention to whatever's happening on the inside. But what I realized that day in Dallas was that I had left my own soul untended for so long. And the damage I did was starting to spread itself all through all the different parts of my life. I know it shouldn't have surprised me, this distance between the way I wanted to live and the condition in which I ultimately found my soul that day in Dallas. It shouldn't have surprised me because I know better than this. I know that our souls never thrive, never flourish, never grow in deep and beautiful ways when we've lived lives where we've stopped paying attention to them. One thing I found was that for many of us, rather than face what we've done to our own lives, rather than kind of dig down deep and be really honest about what's causing us to make these choices, many of us just prefer to keep moving. And that's what I did. I just kept moving. I let activity and responsibility and hustling kind of anesthetize me, keep me safe, keep me from having to face the things that I needed to face on the inside of my life. And so some of us choose busyness. Some people choose overworking. Some people choose working out obsessively, or shopping obsessively, or drugs, or alcohol, or illicit sex, or gambling, or risky behaviors, or whatever. There are so many things that we can use to kind of anesthetize ourselves, to build a buffer between the searing pain on the inside of our lives and the thing that people see on the outside. A lot of times that distance is created by the buffer that we use. What I chose was hustling, was just being so busy that I could outrun my feelings. I could outrun my fear. If I moved fast enough, it felt like I was running on thin ice, like a cartoon, and right behind me, the ice was cracking, but if I just stayed ahead of it, I would never fall under the water. If I moved fast enough, I didn't have to feel the fear or the anxiety or the regret of what I had allowed to happen to my life, to my closest relationships, to my relationship with God, to my own soul. We all have those things, right? Those things that we grab onto in order to keep us from facing the truth about our lives. And I feel like I became someone who was known for moving fast all the time, for being incredibly capable, for hitting deadlines and multitasking. I was extremely efficient. Efficiency and responsibility were these very valuable words to me. Because somewhere I developed the idea, or I believed the myth, that if you do enough, you will be enough. That if you do more, you'll be more. That if you hustle and prove and earn and win, you'll get something, you'll get somewhere. Where I ended up was alone and exhausted. I believed a whole group of myths that said, the more you do, the happier you will be. And so I did, and I found myself desperately unhappy. And we all have those ideas, those stories that we tell ourselves, those myths about how life will be if we just this. My friend Glennon says, and I love this phrase, and I feel like it's applicable in so many different situations, she says, there's no there. A lot of us are living with great pain or great frustration or at great personal cost because we think it's all going to be worth it someday. If there's enough money in the bank at some point, if I hit that number on the scale, if I such and such. And then what happens? You hit that number on the scale, or you get that amount of money in your bank account and you realize there's no there. There's never enough money. The number on the scale is never low enough. There was never enough things that I could accomplish that finally made me feel like I could rest. And so I believed that the hustling would bring me somewhere. And all it brought me to was exhaustion and isolation. And I feel like this kind of trend of hustling, or this impulse to hustle, to move more quickly than we were made to run at a higher speed, to push and earn and perform. It can look a lot of different ways, right? Like a lot of times we think like, oh, that's just for like big fancy corporate people, or that's just for this kind of person. And but I think this way of living, this sort of wound up earning, pushing, proving rhythm, you can see it in all kinds of different ways. I have a friend who is a stay-at-home mom, has 3 little kids at home, and she's hustling from morning till night, believing that if her home and her kids are perfect, she'll finally be safe and happy. And so their home is always getting one more thing and one more room and one more redo. And the kids are always going to one more thing and one more class. And you get the idea that this is all a very elaborate, very difficult way of proving something important. So she may not have a big fancy job or a corner office or a set of employees or a boss or whatever, but just the same, she's hustling. She's hustling for her worth because she doesn't believe that she's measuring up without it. I think it's really tricky. So many of my friends, obviously myself included, are in that kind of freelance space. And it's so tempting to just take one more job and one more job and one more writing assignment or one more weekend away. And because the more you do, there's that myth that the more you do, the more you are. That if you do more, you will be more. And there's a kind of pervasive mentality that says you want to strike while the iron's hot. That if I get a job, I can't say no. That if someone's offering me work, I have to take it. But that mentality then leads us to lives where we can never rest, where we can never stop, when we can never say, there, I've done enough. I realized at a certain point, I was talking to my husband about it, that all I wanted was, I wanted like a voice from heaven to say to me, you're allowed to stop. You've done enough. You've cleaned enough. You've written enough. You've whatever enough. You're allowed to stop. I think for some people, it's not even as much about like the achieving side of hustling as much as it is about kind of the need meeting, especially for women. There's that idea that a good woman or a good Christian woman is everything to everyone. So you're like the #1 emergency call person for like 100 different people. You're helping her and helping him and bailing him out and making things easier for her and bringing a meal to him and letting them stay with you for 2 months. And you just have this, if I give enough pieces of myself away, I'll get to where I want to be. One of the more kind of challenging aspects that I realized as I was walking my way through this journey was that essentially life as a Christian is about giving. It's about loving, it's about serving, sacrificing, pouring yourself out on behalf of other people. I was raised to do that. I believed in that. I still believe in that. But I also knew that I wasn't just giving, I was overgiving. I wasn't just loving, I was loving to the point where I didn't have anything else to give. I wasn't just pouring out, I was pouring so much more out than I could continue to do in a healthy way. And so I didn't know still the way to get from here to there. But I realized that this journey would have to be even deeper, even more difficult, that it would be less about time management and less about learning new skills and more actually about a whole remodel.
Refresh.